ICPs are a living document. Explore, expand, pivot if you need to, make some product adjustments. That should accelerate growth. This last statement says that sometimes the only way to beat the competition is to stop trying to beat the competition. So find those new arenas, adjust those ICPs if possible, and move ahead with your business. So that's it.
Love it, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So if there are questions from the audience, feel free to write them in the chat. We'll pick them up from there. It's funny, Kevin, because lots of today was around not defaulting to what everyone else thinks should be kind of the obvious answer, right? Like we talked about previously on other related topics, similar to that. And you're saying SaaS shouldn't necessarily be your ICP, or like why is that? And what's the decision framework around it, which I find very, very fascinating. By the way, it's a very much active topic for us at Breadcrumbs as we speak. Funny enough.
Yeah, I think we are, we're creatures of habit, right?
Yeah. And easy choice, right?
Path of least resistance.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how we've always lived with that. And the way, Armando, that I've kind of looked at this is, at the end of the day, right, we all have an altruistic side that we built a product that we strongly believe in. Mm-hmm. But the other side of it is, whether it's, in our case, our company's bootstrapped, right, it's our money. Yeah. Right? So we have to maximize that. And if we allow ourselves to stay in a place where we become stagnant, and I'm sure there's people that will either watch this live or watch the recording later and say, oh, you know what, we were already doing that. We have our ICP as a living document. We review it monthly. Mm-hmm. That's great. But I'd say most companies probably haven't looked at it in a long time because they're busy. Right?
Yes. I'm curious, what's your decision framework to explore other ICPs / industries? What would you recommend? Say that someone, listening in, looking at the recording is like, oh yeah, maybe I should explore that idea. How should they do it?
Well, so the first thing I throw out to you is a mindset, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to adjust because we're all, our product and our companies are our children, right? So the idea of a shift has to start with a mindset. Mm-hmm. Then, the second part of that is to be open to some what potentially might be minor product shifts, right? And we had to do that. We had to build another version of our product to really get us to where we wanted to be. And our development team and my co-founder Tom and his team did a phenomenal job of that. But then literally it's like opening your mind and probably your fingers of trying to do literally internet searches about other companies. And I'll tell you, they've never been in a better place for this than with the tools that we have with generative AI.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, think about ChatGPT. You could literally go ask ChatGPT right now, my product does this, it has this features, what other markets should I look at? Mm-hmm. And that's going to start triggering.
That might be an example for inspiration for sure.
Yes, right, because that's what most of us use ChatGPT for inspiration to do other things lately, right?
Yeah. Another way, it's funny because my own hot take earlier today was around the fact that averages are lazy AF way of measuring.
Yeah.
And part of the story there is that if instead of relying on averages, you do a cohort analysis and a more opinionated breakdown, right, there will be stuff that you expect to see. Yep. There will be stuff that you didn't expect to see. Right? There will be outlier, there will be edge cases that might be not, outliers, but potentially pointing to future markets for you.
Yeah. I mean, you could look at, to that similar point, right? You could be looking at your Google Analytics, right? Mm-hmm. You could look at, Breadcrumbs. You could look at whatever tools that you're using in your business that lets you see who's even looking at your website. Right. Instead of saying, they're not in our core ICP.
Right.
Stop and say, could they be in our core ICP?
Why are they that interested in us if we're not interested in them?
How did they show up here?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They got here somehow. Why are they here? And did they spend any time? And if they spend any time, should I be thinking about the market that they're in?
Is there something there for you, right? Like you can investigate even only.
And maybe even why did they move on past us?
Right.
Am I missing something in my product that would have brought those people in? What we found in our shift, Armando, which was really interesting in this, is that when we made a shift we started kind of focused on manufacturing and then tech companies, and we literally now kind of push tech companies off to the side just because of bandwidth and our team size. But when we found, I used the term earlier and I moved pretty quickly through, but we talked about sub-markets.
Right.
And so we found some new sub-markets, but that they go deep. So we're starting right now in like 3 or 4 arenas, and there's probably 50 that we can continue to grow. So this has kind of been our experience. And, we could chat all day probably on this. I just wanted to kind of mention my contact information is here if anybody has an interest in talking. And we host a podcast each week, and we actually talk about some of this type of stuff as well.
Yeah. So one point is that you were mentioning, like 17,000 B2B SaaS companies. Like, how many other companies are there in different markets than B2B SaaS? Like hundreds of thousands, if not millions. Tom Burden from the chat, from the audience, is asking, does this apply outside of B2B SaaS?
Yeah, well, 100%, right? I mean, I don't think it matters if let's look at the company you might be familiar with from your homeland of that competed against Ferrari of Lamborghini. Right? What did Lamborghini start making? Do you know?
I had no idea.
Lamborghini started as a tractor maker.
Oh, okay.
He made farming equipment, right?
Wow.
And he didn't like Enzo Ferrari.
And they were like, wait a second, maybe I should start competing with this guy.
So, I mean, to Tom's point is, I think we could do this in any type of business, right? It's what attributes does my company have? What are we strong at? What, if you're in the manufacturing business, what does our tooling allow us to do outside us? One of the best examples of that is, I think that we could look at it just came to mind, was look at all the companies during the pandemic that shifted their production. My oldest son owns a clothing brand, pretty popular clothing brand in Los Angeles. And next thing they knew, his clothing production lines were making masks with filtration in them because they partnered with a medical company to help them, On
this note, Kevin, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.